Call the meeting of the Citizen Advisory Committee to order. And we are going to do roll call.
Lisa Baker, City of Winters.
Present.
Lulu Zane, City of Davis.
Oh, present.
Maria Elena Sepulveda, at large.
Present.
Valerie Green at large.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum. So far, Molly Frank is going to be absent, and Molly from Woodland and Owen Woods of County of Yolo have not arrived yet.
Thank you very much. We'll move on then to item 2, comments from the public regarding matters not on the agenda. Within the purview of YoloTD, comments will be limited to 2 minutes per person because of the large crowds. Please identify yourself and in which community you live before providing your comments. Is there anyone here in the audience that would like to speak on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, is there anyone online who would like to?
No public comments online.
Seeing no public comments, we will move on to consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve, or are there any changes?
I move to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you so much. I have a motion and a second. Any other commentary? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, the ayes have it. We're going to move on then to regular calendar. That was fast, and now we will slow down. And Madam Director.
Oh, all right, yeah. Good evening, I'm Chas Pedrigo, Director of Finance and Administration. Today we'll be covering our fiscal year 26-27 preliminary budget and work plan. I'll be going over the budget, and then we can take a break in between before Autumn goes into the work plan for the fiscal year. And then we can answer your questions there or go at a pace that works for you.
That sounds good. So we'll get just for the committee members, we'll get the first part of the presentation. We'll take a pause and we'll get technical and other questions. And then when those are answered, then we'll go to the second half of the presentation.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so I just wanna, because you guys have 2 thick stacks of paper in front of you.
Many trees died.
So on the slides, they're gonna be different from what is in the 2 packets. The agenda includes this one. It includes the actual budget document or budget book, and that starts on page 20. I don't have these tables on the slides. There might be a few clips of them, but if you want to look at the overall budget document, you want to look at the agenda packet. And then for the PowerPoints, this is what we'll be going through here. So I'll be kind of going back and forth if you want to take a look at the budget book itself or just the slides.
And that's page 21, 22 for those who are following us.
All right, so before we begin, I also want to briefly note that we did hold a successful budget workshop on March 9th. The budget workshop covered how YoloTD transit funding is used, how service costs are calculated and allocated, and the major cost drivers affecting our budget and our operating needs. If you weren't able to join, the workshop is recorded and the presentation slides are on our website under the March 9th meeting item 7. All right. So our staff recommendation, you can go back, today is that we're gonna present the 26-27 budget and work plan, and we ask that you provide your feedback. All the feedback here will be shared with the board of directors at our May 18th meeting for their consideration prior to their action for approval in June. Next slide, please. All right, starting with the high level overview, the preliminary 26-27 budget. On the service side, budget includes 1 proposed modification to fixed route with corresponding adjustments to microtransit in Winters. We anticipate any other service changes arising out of the short range transportation plan to launch sometime in the following fiscal year 27-28. Key budget updates reflect the new transit operations contract with MV resulting from recent procurement. Operating costs are updated to align with projected actuals and market trends, salary and benefit adjustments, and the addition of a new category clearly identifying one-time operating related expenses. Overall, we are projecting a $27.7 million operating budget. It's a $6.1 million increase as compared to the prior year. On the capital side, we're proposing to carry forward $6.1 million in capital projects and about $193,000 in new capital appropriations and capital reserves contributions. Next slide, Jeannie. Starting off with administration, we'll go through administration, then fixed route, microtransit beeline, and then paratransit. So in administration, we show about a 5% overall increase. If you're looking at your budget document, that would be on page 24. Salaries and benefits reflect a 2.72 COLA, cost of living adjustment, and increases in PERS and related benefits as our vacancies have been filled, and then costs align with current levels. The budget also eliminates one vacant full-time equivalent position, which is the finance and administrative assistant position. Key updates in administration includes decreases in several line items due to non-recurring operating expenses budgeted in the prior year, along with operating adjustments aligned with current cost trends. One-time operating expenses include approximately $30,000 for administrative office repairs and maintenance, and $8,000 for the implementation of Civic Plus, which is a government technology platform that will be used for communications and board-related documents. Fixed route, overall, we have a 36% operating budget increase. The budget includes the restoration of the Winters Route 220, anticipated to begin in January of 2027, operating about 3 morning trips and 3 afternoon trips. Key updates for fixed route reflect the new MV transit contract, which includes about a 17% rate increase. It also includes several one-time operating expenses, including $1.3 million for planning and multimodal related costs, $1 million for major vehicle maintenance, and about $428,000 in startup costs associated with the transitioning of the new transit operations contract. These next 2 slides are snips from the actual budget document. This shows the fixed route schedules. You'll find the only real change here is, again, the restoration of Winters Route 220 that adds about 882 hours and 23,377 miles. This change represents about a half a year of service, as the restoration of this Route 220 is anticipated to happen in January of 2027. Skip over one more and one more. Thank you. Microtransit starts on your budget document, page 33. Overall, we have a 49% increase. This budget reflects only one service adjustment, which directly corresponds to the restoration of Winters Route 220. Key budget updates for microtransit beeline include the new transit contract, which incorporates this 63% rate increase. The contract structure in this case includes an annual fixed fee of approximately $551,000 for fiscal year 26-27. And in addition to the hours, it also applies a per mile cost estimated at $224,000 for this coming fiscal year. Next slide, please. This is also a snip from the budget document showing the microtransit schedule. It includes the hours for Beeline. Woodland shows a decrease in hours as a result of some re-estimating of the route times and deadhead hours. The other changes reflect, here shows one Beeline vehicle discontinuing service in winters once the Route 220 is restored in January of 2027. For microtransit, there are one-time operating expenses that include $65,000 for major vehicle maintenance and about 111,000 in startup costs, again, related to the transitioning to the new transit operations contractor. Next slide, please. Paratransit on page 35 of the budget document. We show about 10.9% increase. This budget reflects actually a decrease in estimated service hours to better align with the recent operating trends and actual demand. So we did a little work reviewing the number of hours that were previously budgeted in the prior fiscal years and did a lot more alignment with what we're actually seeing in the data. So that was a decrease in the hours, which drives down the cost. Updates also include the new transit operations contract, which is about a 15% increase, along with a per mile operating cost estimated at $260,000. One-time, operating expenses include about $299,000 for major vehicle maintenance and $72,000 in startup costs associated with transitioning to the new operations contract. So these next couple of slides is more focused on STA and LTF. Those are our TDA funds, Transportation Development Act. They're two of our major funding sources for operations. You might hear me repeat a couple of things, but I'll bring it all together in the end. In the two prior budget presentations to this committee, we did focus a lot of our attention on TDA funding, specifically the LTF funds, and how they were allocated and being used. So you're getting somewhat of an update on it, along with what we are proposing to do in this next fiscal year. So the two recurring TDA sources of funds are the state transit assistance and the local transportation funds. State STA funds are generated through sales tax on fuel and diesel fuel, and then local transportation funds are derived from a 1/4 of general sales tax collected statewide. Let me actually pull up my own slides. And then we have FTA funds, which are our federal transit programs that support operation, maintenance, and improved public transportation systems. Below you'll see section 5307 primarily funds urbanized areas, and for us that would be for West Sacramento, Woodland, and Davis, helping us maintain service, replace vehicles, and invest in capital infrastructure. While 53011 provides similar support for rural and small urban communities to ensure access to essential mobility services. Slide. Again, LTF is derived from the 1/4 general sales tax and is the largest transit funding program. All revenues are returned to the originating county and funds are administered through SACOG. Additionally, state law allows smaller counties to use LTF funds for streets and roads only after the public process confirms that all transit needs have been met. Next slide. So competing priorities, as we mentioned in the previous slide, LTF funds can be used for streets and roads after all transit needs have been met. In addition to LTF funding, being used for transit needs. Another key note here is that there are competing priorities given a critically underfunded road rehabilitation in Yolo County. Most jurisdictions within the county rely on LTF funds as an annual source to pay for their road rehabilitation. And then last, LTF funds are also used for West Sacramento's on-demand ride-sharing services. Then here you just see a little bit of a trend of what's been happening as compared to the regional level and Yolo County. As far as the growth rate in LTF, we were seeing growth between 2020 and 2022, and Yolo County follows the same overall trend. As you see, they look very similar from 2020 and forward, kind of mirroring each other, but not at the same growth rate. This is caused by our local economic conditions showing how those are different. So as SACOG is increasing, we're not, seeing the same increases there. Okay, so who decides on how to allocate LTF? So decisions on how LTF is allocated for transit are made by YoloTD board and the city of Davis as the Unitrans operator. If available funds are not claimed for transit, SACOG may determine that transit needs are met, allowing cities to request the remaining funds for other eligible uses. However, reducing transit funding for road rehabilitation may conflict with SACOG guidelines and TDA requirements. Next slide. Last year, this slide looked a little different, where the little triangles were the opposite direction. This year, we're seeing decreases overall in STA and LTF allocations. So what you're looking at here is the change that happened in the amount that our jurisdictions retain. So we've typically seen historically that the jurisdictions combined STA and LTF funds would retain about 50% of that. So this table reflects the amounts to be retained by the jurisdictions in the preliminary 26-27 budget as compared to 25-26. We are seeing decreases all across the jurisdictions due to one, a 5.8% decrease in the TDA allocations, and then two, proposed additional use of LTF funds to help support non-recurring operating expenses. Next slide, please. All right, so here I give a little bit of a different presentation of the same information we covered. This shows the use of TDA, or LTF and LTF funds, as compared to the prior year operating budget and the current year operating budget. So this percentage is not on the slide, but overall of our 27.7 preliminary operating budget, STA and LTF will fund approximately 37% of that operating budget. Next slide. And then here I capture it another way, showing the administration, fixed route, B-line and paratransit budgets and how much of the STA and LTF funds fund those. This might look familiar. Again, we used this slide in the past two budgets. This is just showing overall the combined STA and LTF allocations retained by our jurisdictions are at these percentages proposed for this fiscal year. It looks like one more back, sorry. So the prior year, we were just slightly under, the jurisdictions were slightly under retaining 50%. This year, you see that change of about YoloTD using 60% of it and jurisdictions retaining 40% of it. And then here, This is additional information. This is actually available also in the budget document. As I mentioned earlier, there are non-recurring operating expenses that we will be using a little more of LTF funds to support that. This first table can be found in the capital project section of the budget document in table 2.4. It shows the projects supported by those LTF, so many acronyms, LTF funds, either as the primary source of funding or as a federal local match. The second table below provides detail on the new transit operations contract startup costs. So we are budgeting in this preliminary 26-27 budget, $611,000 in startup costs, while you'll see there that a portion of it will be paid in this current year. And then other revenue sources. We talked a lot about STA and LTF. We did some mentions of the federal funds. Those are our major funding sources. You can go back one more. Yeah, that's fine. Sorry. I thought there was one more before that. Thank you, Janine. Thank you. So we're just kind of bringing together all of the funding sources as just one big summary for the $27.7 million proposed 26-27 budget. So as you can see there, again, I'm highlighting how much of STA and LTF is funding admin, fixed route, micro, and paratransit. And then you'll also see a few of the other funding sources there. Specifically the SB 125, which is a one-time state of California transit funding package that provides statewide support for both transit operations and capital improvements. This preliminary budget applies non-recurring funding of SB 125 cycles 2 and 3, representing approximately 31% of the proposed 26-27 funding sources. And then I don't have a slide here. We can pause right here before we get into the 5-year outlook. I don't have a slide, but I just wanted to mention about the non-recurring operating revenues and expenses. For this budget year, you probably won't notice, but there is a new line item in the detail of those pages, the admin, fixed route, micro, and paratransit budgets. You'll see a non-recurring revenues line and then a non-recurring expense line. So we did this because we wanted to be able to really make a distinction between what is not going to happen from year to year. So that's why we wanted to add that in there. You'll see if you look in each one of them with the exception, actually, I think they all have that one item. That is highlighting what we plan to do just in this year. So for the purpose of improving transparency, we separated those line items. The expenses, as I mentioned, primarily represent one-time initiatives and previously deferred operating needs that must be addressed at this time, more specifically the major vehicle maintenance. And then on the revenues, non-recurring revenues consist mainly of the SB 125 cycles 2 and 3, which represent a pretty significant portion of this proposed budget. And then non-recurring expenses also include planning and multimodal initiatives, major vehicle maintenance, startup costs associated with the new transit contract, and then additional project details about LTF funding and non-recurring operating projects can be found in that 2.4 section on page 15 of the budget. Okay. 5-year outlook. So for service levels,
So maybe this is, we'll pause here for any technical questions.
yeah, you can. This is just the last part of the budget,
Is it
but
short?
we can talk about that.
Oh, no, it's short, we can finish.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Whatever you are
All good.
comfortable with. I know I've been looking at this thing for weeks, so you can pause wherever you want.
No, this is cool.
Okay, all right, so on the 5-year outlook, this assumes the 26-27 service levels are maintained in the future years with the VMT mitigation services beginning in fiscal year 29-30, funded through self-supporting sources. The short-range transportation plan includes several scenarios, including reductions that could take place if future funding remains uncertain. Key assumptions for the 5-year outlook include annual inflators tied to the new transit operations contract, along with assumed increases, which are 2% for personnel, 3% for fuel and insurance, and 2% for other inflation-sensitive operating costs. And then revenue assumptions on the 5-year outlook assumes no new one-time funding, a return to historical LTF allocations retained by the jurisdictions, and continued use of both annual and previously unspent formula funds, the federal funds, to help stabilize operating budgets. It also assumes utilization of a fiscal year 20, actually it's federal fiscal year 24 and 25, 5307 UZA Sacramento discretionary funds. And we can go to the next slide. So there's a lot more detail in the budget book itself on page, I believe this is 45. I just condensed it for the slide. So after applying, you'll actually see there's a deficit that we're seeing in the 27-28 year that ends up growing to about 9.6 in year 5. And so this is after applying the funds available that we know of today and the revenue assumptions that we made throughout the 5 years. And so with that, transit reductions may be necessary if no new revenue sources are available to us in those future years. Questions?
Okay, so just for folks who came in later, we've broken this into 2 parts, going over the budget, and then we're taking a pause now to ask questions about the budget items, and then we'll go into the work plan. So with that, maybe we can start to the right. Any questions?
None of this one.
Just specifically with the microtransit, so I understand the implementation of Winter's Vacaville line, and so that will decrease. And so when you're saying the dead spaces, though, is that where we're not seeing like any use of the microtransit or?
Oh, is it the deadhead hours?
The deadhead hours.
Oh,
There we go.
yeah. So that's usually the time where the vehicle's not in service, when they're going from the yard to in breaks and lunches and things.
Okay,
There's a better way to say it. It's just not coming to mind.
thank you.
Sure. I noticed on the, doesn't have a page here, but the preliminary 26-27 budget, down at the bottom, the summary shows 60% administrative.
I think that's the,
Can you
I think
comment
he's
on that?
talking about the STA PCAP
Oh,
percentage.
okay.
What's, what
It's
slide
right
number?
after the other revenue sources that support the fiscal year 27 or something.
Oh, yes, it's,
Just right here.
Yeah.
okay. That is the percentage that STA and LTF funds, administration, the administration budget.
Okay, so that's the administration here.
Yes.
Good. Okay, now, why is that so high? I could see a board member looking at that and saying, well, that's a good place to cut things. And that's not what we want, but it's kind of an easy.
To be clear, that's not a 60% increase. That is, that's saying how the administrative budget is funded, 60% of it comes from STLTF, 40% comes from other revenue.
Okay, that's not what's going to support the staff,
So that,
administrative staff.
so that is, it's not saying that 60% of our budget supports administrative staff. That's just telling you where the revenues come from for administration.
Okay,
Um,
I got it. Okay, all right.
overall administration is what percentage of our budget as it goes to administrative?
I walked in here late.
Well, no,
And
I have the same confusion, because I was like, wait, can we use that much of that funding for administration costs? Because it's like 60% is a big number.
Right,
Yeah, and I was like, that's a lot of funding.
Yeah, so the slides before this, you know, we focused a lot on, STA and LTF funds and how they're being allocated. This one happens to be like one of the last slides with all the numbers being pulled together. The
14% if you're doing the math.
The STA funds, are fully allocated to fund, administration. In fact, we had to use a little bit of LTF funds to also support the administration budget. So any remaining LTF funds were allocated to services.
just a suggestion. You might find some way to, I'm not saying hide it, but maybe explain it. Note it and explain it so that somebody like me, who walks in on it cold, really
Yeah.
thinks, oh, wait a minute here.
Mhm.
Something say what?
Yeah.
So to clarify, the part that we should be more specific about is what percentage of our overall budget is administrative costs? Is that right?
Well, that I think would help. If you had a line down below or something that said, this is where the funding comes from, but it's not that he's, just explain it.
I don't know that there is any place in your budget presentation where you say you're spending 14% of your total on admin. The column that says how it relates to the numbers above is sort of diverse from the table itself in a separate thing, so it kind of gets lost from its meaning, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does make sense. Thank you for that.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Moving along. Yeah, so the final table that you showed with the 5-year outlook, I guess I'm confused about how to interpret the reduction in service. So you said the percent change, recurring operating expenses, this is assumed to be an increase on the where it says that 13%, 4%. So this is table 3. I'm just making sure I'm interpreting this right. So that's an increase, not a decrease.
I'm not sure where you're looking.
Okay, sorry. So if I'm looking on table 3, which is titled YoloTD 5-year outlook.
Yeah. I'm on the same one.
Okay, cool. So then where it says scenarios, below that says percent scenario expenditure budgets, below that it says percent change. So that's assuming the percent change in operating expenses. Is that assuming the reductions that you've proposed? No.
No,
Okay.
no, the assumptions made in this 5-year outlook for the next few years assumes what we are proposing, the service levels we're proposing for 26, 27. It
Yeah.
doesn't assume any changes.
All right, that makes sense because if you're using this to make a case for demonstrating that there is unmet transit needs, then you don't want to reduce the budget before you make that case, right? Yeah, so.
Yeah, and just to chime in on this, our board has not yet made a decision about whether or not to cut service. That's something that'll be coming shortly in this next fiscal year, as we look at kind of what lies ahead. And so what Chaz did here was essentially say, okay, if we don't cut service, if we want to keep our current service levels, this is how big the deficit is going to be. So starting at about 1.4 million in fiscal year 27-28 and growing to 9.6 million in fiscal year 2030-2031. And that is, again, largely driven by this new transit operations contract that we just signed, because our current transit operations contract dates to 2018. And so, given the amount of inflation that we've been seeing in the economy, we've been getting a really good deal, to put it mildly. But to a large extent at the expense of our drivers, who have not been making really been below market in terms of their wages. So a big part of what we see with this new transit operations contract is an adjustment to the wages for our drivers. And also right sizing the cost of parts and supplies and all the other things that have gotten more expensive. So unfortunately, what that does mean is with that increase in our transit operations contract and a lot of this one-time kind of money going away, we do see this growing deficit in the out years. And so it is likely that our board will have to approve service cuts unless we identify where we want to try to take more, essentially get more money in order to avoid those service cuts.
You want to ask a follow-up? So that is maybe not assuming any kind of cost efficiencies we can realize from a new service and a new software package as well. Those may have impacts as well on the drivers for improvement.
Well, that's a good segue to the work plan discussion.
Put a pin in that. Anything else?
Oh, I just have two more questions. So first, I was wondering what are some of the other priorities that would qualify to be funded if there's any excess funds? Is under the slide who decide how to allocate local transportation fund?
Which slide are you looking at?
Oh, so the Yolo,
STA, is it the,
LTF. So the Yolo County Transportation Board of Directors and the City of Davis, they decide like how
Oh.
much, yeah.
yeah, sure.
So that's a great question. Thank you. So the YOLO Transit District Board decides how much to take for our transit services. And then the money that is left over, the cities, StateCog who controls that money, our regional MPO, and then the cities can apply for how they want to use that money. StateCog doesn't get to say, we want you to use it for this or not that. As long as it's an eligible use, then StateCog will give them, and there's money available for it, then StateCog will give it to them. But it's StateCog's job to make sure they are using the money for eligible uses, and that they're doing their math right as far as how much money they can receive. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I have two more follow-up questions. So if there is indeed leftover funds, does the Yolo Transportation Board of Directors have any say in deciding how to allocate these excess funds for other priorities? Or is it entirely up to SACOG? Yeah.
It's really up to the cities to decide how they want to allocate those excess monies as long as they are an authorized use of those funds. The SACOG board really is just verifying that they're an authorized use. We don't have this, so the YOLO Transportation District Board does not get to decide how those funds are allocated.
Oh, and then given the two recent back like deaths, I was wondering if there's anything currently like Yolo County Transportation District can be doing to improve bike safety. For example,
That's another good segue to our work plan
All
discussion.
right, we're gonna finish for the next part. Any more questions?
no, thank you.
Molly, do you still have questions?
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to understand, I'm still a little confused about how to interpret
The one with the
the
triangle.
one with the triangles, yeah, like, the triangles are. Just help me understand this, again, I know you already did it, but I'm sorry, it's
Yeah,
been
no
a long
worries.
day. My interpretation.
We have
filter.
time.
But I guess I'm just understanding, so what it says here is that this is changed from last year, so they're giving us, so when it's a negative, they're giving us less.
The jurisdictions are retaining less.
Retaining less, so they're giving us more. So it's a negative, but it's
giving
really a
them
positive for us,
Yeah, we're giving them less.
but we're
I guess
giving them
it's the
less,
same.
we're the ones giving them,
Yeah.
Well, this is
Okay.
a net decrease in how much they're getting.
they're getting.
But it's in part because the overall amount of money that we're getting for the county as a whole is also declining compared to
So-
last year.
So this does not reflect the political decisions that were made by the cities, this is something you all decided? How are these numbers arrived?
So it's a combination of, so this decrease is a combination of overall, STA went down 9.1%. this year. And then, LTF went down about maybe 6%. So it's that, less funding, and then our increased use of LTF funding to support the non-recurring operating expenses.
Okay, so those get first dibs.
So yes, we are asking for more. Now, this hasn't been approved.
Oh.
Right, so this is our proposed budget. So we'll see if it is approved, but it is us, we are asking for more than we have taken in prior years, and this slide is really illustrating that.
Okay, so it's pretty modest, so we're not asking for the moon. So, but yet we have this budget deficit, so is this not addressing that deficit? Is this asking for more?
So there is no budget deficit for this year that
Oh,
we're
okay.
planning for, right? The deficit starts to kick in and
It's a projected.
it's a projected deficit starting in, the year after this, right?
So we don't have to ding them yet, because this is just dinging them based on revenues, that what came from sales tax, it's not about anything YCTD needs. That's what I'm understanding here, so next year then this may increase or like decrease, I guess, right? If we need more.
Yes. Yes. So this year is the last year of this SB 125 transit bailout package that the state approved several years ago. So I think as Chad mentioned, that's something like 30% of our budget this year is that SB 125 money.
Right.
So this, and that money can only be spent for that, and we can't cut service if we're using that money. Part of the condition of that money is that it must be used to avoid service cuts.
Mhm.
But that money goes away after this year unless the legislature renews it. And then at that point, that's when service cuts would kick in starting in essentially July of 2027, unless we either take more of the LTF revenue or we find some other money somewhere.
So there's not a strong case to be made for, there's not like, we have to rally next year to the cities. This year, it's like a soft ask. I mean, are they gonna say no to this? They could.
We'll see.
Yeah, it's a tough year.
When do they decide it? Sorry to have you with them.
On the 18th.
Yeah, so
This month?
May 18th is the Yolo Transportation District Board's first read of the budget, and they'll give us their feedback, and then they are slated to approve it on June.
And then the cities have to approve it after that? Oh, it's just like the city reps on the board. Oh,
That's correct.
so, I see. So,
LTF, decrease, I'm sorry, I missed it.
Yeah, so I wanted to point you guys to in the budget, document, not your PowerPoint printout. On this page 26, it actually shows the allocations, for each jurisdiction. It has the prior year and the current year. And then if you go right down here to the bottom, it shows the STA decrease of 9.1%, and then the LTF decrease of 5.3%.
Yeah.
So just to add on to the add-on. Yeah, so this year we have a combination of pretty significant changes to our operating budget. It includes the transition to the new transit operations contractor, and with that new contract, that also includes a startup cost that is partially being funded in this current year, and then $611,000 of that funded in this proposed 26-27 year. We also have in that same cost structure, there were cost per mile rates added to paratransit and microtransit. And then we also have the non-recurring operating expenses that are detailed a little bit more in the capital section. And then we have the SB 125 cycles 2 and 3 that we mentioned earlier. So with these significant changes in this budget, we do have that offsetting one-time funding source of SB 125 that, like you kind of mentioned earlier, it's kind of a float, this year it's a soft ask for the additional amount. So even after applying those one-time funds, the SB 125, and having a decrease in the overall TDA allocations for this year, what we are asking for, we still needed to ask for a little bit more because our increased use of federal funds, requires a local match, and that is typically going to come from TDA funds. So, a few of our non-recurring operating projects that are finishing up this year do require a local match, and that comes from TDA. So yeah, even after applying the non-recurring funding sources, we still needed a little bit more just to cover, the major maintenance, on the vehicles and our other projects, so.
And I think maybe you'll address this in the plan, but it just feels like we're still sort of aiming low. Like, why not try to expand service or claim that we need more microtransit service? Or why are we just asking for 6.2 when, like, it's not like they're not unmet demands. I mean, there are unmet demands. Winters deserves to have both of us in microtransit service. Like, why do they have to pick? Like, why do we have to pick? So why don't we add that to it? Like, why? I feel like we're still not really advocating the riders with this ask. It's still low. Like, I think we need to push harder. I mean, I know it's too late because we got to do it by the 18th, but it feels like not enough. I mean, not enough for the rider. No, I think we should push harder.
I have questions. So, well, first of all, what I want to say is thank you to all of you and staff, because every year your budget gets sharper. And I really appreciate that as a geeky budget type person. So I especially like starting to show out percentages of funds and what that interrelationship is. I like being able to show which expenses and revenues are non-recurring, because it gives you a better picture of what you can and cannot rely on and what you can expect. So very much thank you for that. I think I want to return to one of the questions that Lulu had, which is a kind of bit of what's the public process on the LTF, because we didn't really get a good overview of how the public, going, I think also to Molly's question, how the public gets to weigh in on how those funds get apportioned. And I think it would be good for TAC members to be able to understand that process better.
Sure. Would you like me to go through that?
Yes.
Now? Yeah, absolutely. So maybe, Janine, you could pull back up the slide deck and we could go back to some of these slides. Let's see. Some of them are labeled and some of them aren't. I want to say, go back to slide, I think it's slide 18. So a little bit about, so this slide, who decides how to allocate LTM? It's a very complicated answer. It's a hard question to answer, and it is really complicated. And it's something that I think we all could do a better job of clarifying. So transit operators have the discretion to decide how much LTF they claim for transit. Now, in a place like Davis has both Unitrans and YoloTD. And so Unitrans and YoloTD can come to an arrangement essentially about how much they each take. Unitrans actually does have an MOU with the city of Davis about how much LTF they take every year. They have not taken it for the last few years because they've also had this increase in formula funds and one-time funds due to COVID, federal money, et cetera. So they have not been claiming it, but in typical years they do. YoloTD does not have any formal agreements about how much LTF we receive from our jurisdictions. Other transit agencies and other places in California do, we do not. What we have when we look back historically is we see that approximately 50% of STA and LTF, now STA is only for transit, it can't be used for anything else, but 50% of STA and LTF we retain. So in some years STA is higher, LTF is lower. So in those cases, we take less LTF. Like, right, it's been kind of, it varies year to year how much LTF we take, some in part based on how much STA there is. That has been some kind of unspoken informal arrangement, is how I would put it. But there's not a formal agreement. The YoloTD Board of Directors has the authority to determine how much of that LTF, other than what the city of Davis has already committed to Unitrans, it wants to take for transit service. That is a decision that is made by the board that meets in this room. They make it every year as part of the budget process. Now, if the board does not approve it, let's say we were to do, what committee member D'Agostino is asking for, and we ask for 100% of the LTF, and the board says no, then we have to go back until we essentially get them to yes, if you will. Once they say yes to whatever amount of LTF, whatever budget level they've agreed to, then the rest of the money is available to the cities to do what they want with, and they have broad authority under TDA to use it for a wide variety of purposes. In fact, they can use it for a wider variety of purposes than we can. They do though, it does have to comply with the uses that are outlined in the law, and they have to then go to SACOG and apply for those funds and demonstrate how what they want to use them for is consistent with the law. So that is if folks want more money to be used for transit, it is the YoloTD board that needs to hear that. And frankly, the YoloTD board members need to be able to have that conversation with their city councils, because at the end of the day, the YoloTD board members are one representative from their city council, that they are meant to represent the wishes and viewpoints of their city council. So each city council needs to decide what their priorities are for their LTF funding, and then hopefully send their delegation here to YoloTD to make that decision on their behalf. So while technically this board decides, I would say it's the city councils where those decisions are ultimately made, if I'm being frank about how this process really works.
So I'm just gonna continue to pull on that just a tiny bit.
Sure.
Because one of the things that has to be determined is unmet transit needs. And then the question is, of course, that it's usually people who feel the unmet transit needs. So what is the public engagement component, and the public transparency around, that determination?
So as part of its responsibilities, SACOG, our regional MPO, every year they have to solicit public input on whether or not there are unmet transit needs in Yolo County. They also do it for Sacramento County, Yuba, and Sutter counties. They typically host an online meeting. They typically go to the Davis Farmers Market. They do these kind of public outreach events where they seek input. We seek to amplify that. If we're doing outreach, we will also ask those questions and share that feedback with SACOG. All of those comments are collected by SACOG, and then SACOG makes a determination about whether or not based on the feedback they receive, if there are unmet transit needs that are reasonable to meet. If they make that determination that there are unmet transit needs that are reasonable to meet, then the funds must be first used to meet those unmet transit needs prior to then being made available to the cities. In my 5 years here, that's never happened. And to my knowledge, it's not happened for many years through the SACOG process. So every year there is public input, but those needs are determined to not be reasonable to meet or to not meet the definition of an unmet transit need. And we could have, if it's something that the committee is interested in, we could have SACOG staff come and share with you a bit more about their process and their criteria. So you can understand what that looks like, but that's how it works from my perspective.
I do see nodding heads, but let's get a sense of the committee. Would that be something of interest?
I guess so, but the timing feels a little off, given that its decision is gonna be made on the 18th. Then if we're meeting again in 2 months.
Oh, no, we're presenting the draft on the
Oh,
18th,
okay,
and then we bring it for approval in June.
My head is nodding.
Your head is nodding?
I'm in agreement. Yeah.
So prior to that decision, maybe we can try to schedule something extra. It feels like if it's after, it's not useful.
Well, SACOG has already made that, they make their determination.
Oh, they already did it.
Yeah, it's actually in like January or February every year.
But yes, next year matters because next year's a projected deficit, so I think the
Next year
timing is
matters,
good.
yeah.
So yes, I think, yes, can we do that?
So we could, just to clarify the direction, to have SACOG staff come and give a presentation at one of our upcoming meetings prior to the next Summit Transit Needs process, which will be kicking off in the fall.
Yes.
Does that sound right?
Yes.
We can make that happen.
Okay, so my other question, and I don't know if this is better in the work plan or not, I might be ahead of myself. Is that I noticed that there is a trend in other jurisdictions to sort of, use the sort of equivalent of Beeline to help, offset some of the costs and growth in paratransit and to make those two sort of more, give them more overlap. And I'm wondering if that is, reflected in this budget or something that we'll be looking at.
Good segue for the work plan, but
Okay.
we don't see anything in the budget associated with that.
Okay, appreciate it. Those are my big questions. Are there any other questions before we go on to the work plan? Okay, thank you so much.
All right, so with that, let's pull back up the slides, and we will talk about the work plan. So I'm gonna go through some of the highlights. I want to share that there is this kind of very detailed spreadsheet called attachment B in your packet, starting on page, what is that, 47, that has a lot of detail on each of these things. And I'm not gonna cover every single thing that's in that table. I'm gonna just kind of cover some of the highlights. So feel free if you have questions either now or later about any of the details, I'm happy to answer those. So we'll start with continuing multi-year initiatives. So some of these are projects that are not new this year. These are things that we've been working on for a while, but we're gonna kind of update you on what are we hoping to accomplish with these this year. So next slide. The first is, for some reason, these kind of shrunk. I apologize that they're so small. But a short range transit plan implementation. So that we've been working on the SRTP for a while, right? This kind of maps out how our transit service, we want to change in the next 5 to 7 years. So in this next fiscal year, we'll be approving the final plan for the SRTP and preparing to roll out service changes in fall of 2027. So really the only thing that service change we're making this year is bringing back Route 220 in winters and reducing Beeline, because that's something our board has been really pushing us to do for quite some time. But the rest of the service changes from the SRTP are really not going to take effect until fall of 2027, so next fiscal year. And as part of that, that is where the board, we did do these different scenarios, including like a 20% reduction in service, a 10% reduction in service. And that's where the board would have the opportunity to say, which of these short range transit plan scenarios are we going to roll out based on what we know about our financial situation? Related to that is the Woodland Transit Center relocation. So as you all know, we are getting out of the County Fair Mall. We're very excited about that. We received a grant from SACOG to design and construct improvements at Main and Fifth Street in front of the new courthouse. Yay, which is where the new transit transfer point will be. So part of the reason that we're not rolling out service changes is we actually want to get that construction done, because that's going to impact where our Route 42 stops and all of the local routes in Woodland. And that kind of has ripple effects throughout our system, because the 42 really is our backbone. So we're hoping to get that construction going and nearly complete by the end of this fiscal year, and then be able to implement the service changes next fall. Next slide. All right, the I-80 Managed Lanes project. You haven't had an update on this in a while. I think we have that actually on the long range calendar coming up, but we're going to be finalizing the VMT mitigation, or vehicle miles travel mitigation plan, which does fund some expansions of our transit service that are going to be starting in 2930. We've nearly completed our equity action study, which we're going to be presenting to the CARTA, to the Tolling Authority Board this fall, and of course, completing construction of the new lanes. So a lot happening there. Our Yolo Active Transportation Corridors project. Lulu, you had asked about, I'm sorry. We can come back to it, but this is our countywide active transportation corridors plan. We're going to be completing design of 2 priority segments between Woodland and Davis and Madison to Esparto. So doing the design work, which then positions those to go out and seek funding for construction of those bike paths. And so then once we've got that design work done, then we'll be focused on pursuing funding for those and also monitoring implementation of the overall countywide plan. Next slide. So modernizing fare payments, this is something we've been working on for a while now. Daniel's really been doing a lot of work on this. Just this last month, we installed tap to pay readers in all of our buses, which is really exciting. Yeah, so we will be able to tap with a debit or credit card. Now, those are not fully implemented yet. There's a contract that our board has to sign this month for payment processing, and then there's testing that has to happen. So we're looking forward to fully implementing and rolling that out by the end of summer, early fall. There's also now, we're going to be retiring the physical Connect card, and that's being replaced with the Transit Connect mobile app. So that's already live, but there's additional kind of phases of implementation that are rolling out, and the Connect card itself will be retired, we think, by the end of next fiscal year. Fleet electrification, this is an ongoing priority to align with our statewide mandate from the California. Have a reflector.
No, can you still use cash?
Yes, cash will still be acceptable. Yes, thank you. We're not getting rid of cash. For fleet electrification, we do have this mandate from the California Air Resources Board. We did receive a big grant from the state that's going to allow us to buy 12 battery electric buses. Now we need to have the charging capability for those. So we'll be doing the design work for additional bus chargers and electrical upgrades to be able to bring that much power into our site to charge all those buses. So we'll be working on the design and securing funding for that construction project here at the bus yard. Next slide. And then lastly, as far as multi-year priorities, we're going to continue to work to address the transit fiscal cliff, which in other words, for this structural deficit that's going to be impacting us and is also impacting most other transit agencies here in California and nationwide. So we're having collaborative discussions about these growing deficits that really are not just for transit, but also active transportation and local streets and roads, given that our funding that we rely on for transit is also funding that's for local streets and roads and active transportation. How do we work together to solve that problem so that we're able to fund really all of our transportation needs and not kind of fund one at the expense of the other, if you will. We want the YoloTD board to approve a roadmap to stabilize transit funding and minimize service cuts. And more conversation about that. Well, what does that look like? What are those new sources of revenue? And to update our agreements on federal funding in Sacramento and Davis. And again, a lot more detail in your packet about those. But next I want to transition to new initiatives. So these are new items that we have for this year. You heard a lot from Chaz about our new transit operations contract. So for the last 25 years, we've had the company now known as TransDev. It was previously called Yolo and other things. We are now, for the first time in 25 years, going to a brand new contractor, MV, effective August 1st. So a priority for our operations team is to minimize disruptions to passengers as we pass the baton from one transit operator to another, and also to responsibly transition our capital assets, our buses, our facility, our bus shelters. All of those are maintained by our contractor. We want to make sure that we are keeping tabs of everything that's ours and that it's being handed off in the right condition. It's like when you move out of an apartment, right? You've got to return everything in the condition it was in when you took it. We want to make sure our transit operator is doing the same thing for us. And then we are going to be doing a countywide transportation improvement plan. This is really to analyze and document the needs and funding shortfalls, not just for transit, but for all modes in Yolo County. Really, what is the magnitude of the need that we have for transit, for transportation in Yolo County? What is our funding shortfall so that we can start to have those conversations about where are we making cuts and where do we need to find new sources of revenue if we want to continue to operate our roads, our transit service, build bike lanes, all of the things that we as our community, rely on to get around. Next slide. So we have a few more that I want to touch on in terms of new initiatives. One is this very wonky but very important modernizing our transit technology platform. There was some comments that alluded to this earlier. Are there efficiencies that we can use based on our transit technology platform? Yes. This is the technology that underpins how we dispatch our routes, how people book trips on paratransit and microtransit, and how we get real-time information on bus locations. It's all one integrated system. Microtransit, because it came later, is actually on a separate own kind of platform that's operated through RideCo, but our paratransit and fixed route are all through a contract that we have that's like 15 years old, and really needs to be updated. And what we want to do is we want to bring everything onto a single platform so that microtransit and paratransit can be blended, can be integrated. This will also allow us to have a mobile app for paratransit and real-time bus information for paratransit, because currently our paratransit riders do not have that, again, because we have this legacy contract that is from an earlier time. So this will also improve our monitoring and capabilities, particularly for paratransit, which is really sort of, as I say, dependent on kind of older technology right now, and as such doesn't really work as well for folks. And we don't have the ability to integrate it and to integrate dispatching and booking like with microtransit, which would allow us some real efficiencies. And related to that, we want to strengthen our paratransit management. Again, having new tools, technology tools will be really helpful with that. We also want to update our application and eligibility verification process. We don't have a very rigorous eligibility verification process right now. We do think this could lead to some cost savings because we think there's probably folks in the system that don't necessarily need to be there. We also want to make sure our policies are and our paratransit, where we offer paratransit, is consistent with the service we're actually offering. We've cut a lot of service, a fixed route bus service. We haven't made concurrent reductions in our paratransit zones. And so what that means is we're providing service for paratransit riders that we actually aren't providing for fixed route bus riders. So we need to right size those, particularly as we're looking at deficits, to make sure that we are complying with the law, but making intentional choices about when and where we go above and beyond what's required under the ADA. Next slide. Quarterly KPI reporting. So this is something our board's been asking for us to do, improved reporting on our key performance indicators, aside from just ridership, which is the one that we have historically reported monthly. And this includes financial performance metrics, things like on-time performance, that we do have the ability to track, and we want to improve, our tracking and reporting of these, and start publishing quarterly reports to the board on a wider variety of indicators. And then there's a lot of work that we want to do, building on and following up on some of the budget workshops we've done over the last year to improve our financial analysis and cost allocation processes, to really drill into, we've sort of inherited, well, this is how we allocate our costs to different funding sources, and this is how we sort of manage costs. We want to review our revenues, our expenses, our funding sources to really improve cost allocation, make sure we're doing it in the most efficient way and also in the most transparent way, so that we can really optimize revenues and expenses. So that concludes my portion of the presentation, and then this is just recapping the staff recommendation. This is the same slide that you saw at the beginning, which is we would love your feedback on the work plan, and all of your feedback will be shared with the board for their consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Start on my right last time, so start on my left.
Oh. Yeah, so I have a couple questions. For modernized fare payments, I was wondering if, like the option paying by cash would still be available.
Yes, cash payments will still be available.
Oh, and then for the senior citizens who would like to apply for a senior discount card, do they need to come to the office like in person in order to apply, or can this all be done online through the Transit Connect mobile app?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'm sorry. With the new Transit Connect app, I'm not sure if they can purchase their passes online through the Transit Connect app if they're not already in our system as seniors. My assumption is that they still will need to come in to do that. But that is, unfortunately, I don't know the answer. If it's changed, I haven't heard that.
Oh, I see. Oh, and then, so for mobile apps used for paratransit services, I was wondering if there are any accommodations for people who are visually impaired. Like, for example, how are they going to use this app to order trips?
That's a great question. When, we have not chosen an app, yet, this will be a new procurement where we go out and look for new, looking for this new software capability. And so accessibility will be a key criteria that we'll be looking for with that. But so that's something that we can build into our search criteria as we go out and seek proposals from vendors.
Oh, yeah, the last question is, so, new technologies like payment and order booking, I was wondering if they are offered like in multiple languages other than English, like Spanish, Chinese, Korean, Russian, Vietnamese, and maybe Thai, yeah. Are they offered in multi-language?
What specifically offered in multiple languages?
For example, the Connect Transit, like the technology you can use on your phone to pay.
Yeah.
It is offered in multiple languages, and then another one is the platform that passengers can book their paratransit trips. Is it offered in multiple languages?
The Transit Connect app is available in multiple languages. I'm not sure which all languages it is. I would have to get back to you on that. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so excited to see about the tap to pay, very exciting. So did you mention the exact timeline or is it not clear?
Oh, we have to sign a contract, I believe, this coming month, right, with the board?
Yeah, so the contract with Elevon, which is the fair payments processor, is going to the board on May 18th for approval.
And after that's approved, we start testing, so the testing would take maybe a month. I'm not positive on that, but I would assume be good enough time. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure on the date will be like live, but the testing will start within a month after the approval.
And so since he doesn't have a mic, I'm just gonna repeat that. So after the board approves the fair payment processing contract on May 18th, then within a month, we'll start testing. And Daniel is the person who actually has to do the testing, so I know he's always hesitant. It just depends on what we find. I think I would say one of the real challenges is that we have a lot of older vehicles, and when we install new technology, some of the things that we find is because they have those tap to pay readers have to be connected to the internet, and they have to be connected to so they have to go through all the devices, the routers and whatnot that are in our vehicles, and we learned when we installed APCs that, you know, some of the vehicles had more challenges than others. I'll put it that way, particularly some of the older vehicles. So hopefully it goes pretty smoothly.
Yeah, we're hoping, but luckily RT has done a lot of testing, got a lot of bugs out, so I'm hoping it'll go pretty smooth.
Their work, yeah, great. And is there a discussion about offering a open loop, like, you know, debit card option, like in lieu of a Connect card?
Yeah, so the tap to pay will be open loop, so we'll be debit and credit cards. Yeah.
Right, but I'm saying like to people that need it, like for the unbanked, to people that are cash paying customers, like, you know, that's been tested elsewhere, to provide people a card.
So with the Transit Connect app, which is developed by a company called Masabi, my understanding is that they do have physical cards that they can make available and can be sold.
Yeah.
So that if folks need that. Because we're doing this, we're piggybacking on SACRT, is the lead on the Transit Connect app. So we have to kind of wait for them to make their decisions about that, and then we will piggyback. So we don't yet, I think, know all the information about that card and how a card will be available.
I do believe it would be the second phase, so it's sometime next year, either like beginning or mid of next year, that they're projecting to be able to use the cards.
Maybe, just to repeat what he's saying, he thinks Daniel's saying that he believes the second phase of the Transit Connect implementation, there will be the physical card is going to be part of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that will be next year, 2027.
So that would be in 2027. And so I think is the idea then to roll that card out before they retire the existing Connect cards?
In tandem, they kind of want RT has a lot of people still on the system, so they're going to probably keep that live till the end of next year.
Okay, so RT will keep the existing Connect cards live till the end of next year while they then phase in these new Masabi cards for those who need a card.
Okay.
We're hoping to be completely off the system as soon as we can with the Connect card system.
Because that will save money.
The money and time and just a lot of troubleshooting issues. With the whole
Yeah,
system.
Connect card
Yeah,
Yeah.
the card hardware is on its last legs, to put it mildly, so I think Daniel's really looking forward to not having to,
Sooner the better.
try to keep those running anymore.
Okay, so question about the paratransit app or like discussion. So are you now, they're sort of it's suggesting that people that would call for paratransit may get to use a Beeline or a microtrans service if they don't have a wheelchair device or something. Is that what the implication is? There would be like a merging of that services?
So potentially, the procurement of the new app is that could happen on its own regardless, so that people who are just paratransit passengers can use an app to book a trip and to see where their vehicle is, just like they can now for microtransit. Separately, the board could decide if they want to blend those services. And actually, rather than sending, every day we send, microtransit vehicles to Winters, and then we also send paratransit vehicles to Winters, right? Some of our microtransit vehicles are wheelchair equipped. They do have a lift, so they can have folks who have wheelchair needs. So the idea would be that it would be more cost efficient to send one vehicle out. If we have one paratransit rider and 3 microtransit riders, that they could all potentially share a vehicle. I think that's where some of the economies can come in. But that is a separate decision from, but the procurement of but we do want to have a single technology platform that will enable that, but it doesn't necessarily mean we have to do it in all cases, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but like a paratransit rider would still have to do like a full day in advance booking. Those are
As far as I know.
Decided, yeah.
Yeah, as far as, I mean, would they be able to book in real time? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but the idea would be that it could have more of the same capabilities that microtransit does.
Yeah, cool. Okay, that's cool. Excited to watch that unfold. And I guess my last question is another kind of when question on the Woodland Trade Center. Like, what is the next step and when is it actually going to be a thing?
So the SACOG board awarded the funding. We are currently doing the design work. We had already started the design. Now we're trying to get it to 100% design. I think I want to say by the end of the calendar year, we want to complete design, and then I think we want to begin construction by June of 2027. But we actually think construction, it's a fairly small project. So once we start construction, we think it should be over quickly. So probably like about 2 to 3 months of construction. So the goal is to then have that essentially done next summer. So then we can start moving services in by next fall.
Okay. It's not quick, but it's not slow, I guess. But it is, I don't know, I'm not even gonna ask about Yahtzee card now. All right, and then.
I've had most of my questions answered except a new one. Which is my recollection of the old transit center, the one that's there now, is that we're seeing many buses laying over there. And as many as 5 or 6. And I'm just wondering how you're gonna fit them all in there at the new transit center. And I'm sure it's a subject that's gotten a lot of attention.
We're not going to. So the key distinction is that the reason you see so many buses at the county fair mall is because that's where the Route 42s stop and start. And so they are frequently laying over because, one Route 42 is a loop, right? They're both loops. And so one will end and then there's another bus waiting to pick up where they left off. And so that is where, so that really is what creates the high volume of buses that you see at the Woodland Transit Center. We're not going to be having buses laying over and starting and stopping the 42s at the new Woodland transfer point, as we're calling it. So unlike a transit center, we're calling it a transfer point. So it means that the Woodland local routes are going to be timed to come to that transfer point when the 42s are scheduled to arrive, right? So that if you're coming from West Sacramento, you get there, then you can get on the West Sacramento locals to get get into the Woodland locals too. So it's going to be timed transfers, but it's not going to be a layover location. Does that help answer your question?
2 buses at a time.
So there'll be 4 bus bays total, but that's right. So that we will not have, we won't have double the 42 buses coming in. So rather than having 4 Route 42s there potentially converging all at once, there'll only be 2.
Why are the 42s not gonna all be there at the same time?
because we're not gonna have them, the loop start and stop there. So,
Where will they start and stop then?
that is a good question. We're looking at 2 locations right now that hasn't been decided. It's either gonna be the Sacramento International Airport, or it's gonna be at the UC Davis Memorial Reunion. In part because those are good places for people to wait. If you're getting off of 142 and have to wait for the other, you wanna be somewhere where there's bathrooms, where it's well lit, where there's other people around,
Where it's
right?
covered, it's the weather's bad.
Where it's covered, exactly, and also for our drivers to be able to go use the restroom. So that's why we're looking at those 2 locations, because those are 2 locations that have kind of activity and have, amenities.
The airport and UC Davis are okay with this.
So we're looking at
Or
those
you're-
issues right now,
you're-
yeah,
You're checking that out.
that's right, yeah, we're assessing those because previously, I will say, I'm really getting into the weeds, I'll just stop there.
Okay, well, you're thinking about all these things, really, that's, okay, thank you.
Any others?
I have some concerns with the modernized fare payment, more so the app itself, having experience with the Beeline app and how inaccurate that can be, and having experience with RT's lovely system and how inaccurate that can be. I understand convenience, but, less work, less labor, right? It still works, so less labor for everyone with regards to the way things are currently running. But I'm just curious, like, how is that gonna work? And then my other question is, like, we just had this huge issue with, and I know it's not education related, we just had this huge issue with Canvas. So if something were to happen where this app were manipulated in some way, it sounds like there's cards that are available. So would that be something that if I had it on my app and for some reason the app is non-functioning, I would be able to go get that card pretty easily if I've already paid for the month?
Do you want to get by a mic?
Sorry.
It's the same reason I always print my boarding pass.
Right?
Question I'm honestly not too sure of, I haven't seen any of the materials, but I believe as long as the receipts and track, we should be able to, refund them on that, because we will have access to, refund stuff on the back.
Okay,
Refund or replace.
and then like the funds in the system, so like will there be something that,
There will be, we wouldn't troubleshoot that, that would be, I think, like Masabi and like the backend provider.
So there'll always be cash.
Yes.
Not that anybody carries cash anymore,
Yeah.
but there will always be cash. And with the tap to pay system, you'll be able to use your whatever debit or credit card is in your wallet, right? So even if the mobile app's not working on your phone, you can still use a debit or credit card.
but like just for like Beeline alone, right, currently I can only book, or to my knowledge, I can only book through the app. And so sometimes that can be problematic. I specifically use it for my children. And so there have been times when they're sitting and it has never come. And it's like, we came and you weren't there. And I'm like, oh no, they were sitting there.
Yes, you can call. So people who don't want to use the app can call with their trips as well
Okay.
and can pay cash fares. Yeah.
Okay, gosh, or they can pay with card.
Or with Connect Card.
Okay.
Yeah, so you don't have to pay with the app.
And that's happened with paratransit too, so I think that we can we're hopeful on the new contract.
It happens with buses too, where the bus says it's gone by.
Yeah, and so that's, I know that experience from RT for sure.
We're super excited about new software and new operators.
A lot of changes,
Any
yeah.
other questions?
No, that's it for me.
Questions?
No, I just wanted to comment that I'm super excited about the upgrades as well, and thank you for all the detailed reporting.
I have a couple. So, so sort of nowhere in here have you thought about the current, I would call it, I guess, the zeitgeist and the opportunity for marketing. So, given fuel prices, especially for individual households, it seems to me that there is an opportunity for enhanced ridership demand if we are sufficiently able to market and seize the moment, especially as we put in upgrades. And partly to offset extra fuel costs on your own side. And just wondering, I don't see anything in your your long range plan to hit the marketing, and I think that's just super duper key. And, because otherwise you're just the best kept secret. On the, VMT mitigation and equity action study, is that coming back to the CAC? And I say that because the CAC had a lot to do with helping to shape that initially, and we're very interested in next steps, so.
Yes, that is coming to you in July.
Yay! And I thought, going back to the marketing and also this sort of competition, friendly competition, if you will, for multimodal transportation things, I actually think that the work of the CAC several terms ago offers a opportunity to think about that differently. So if you go to our little sunflower, this is really very much an opportunity to think about how ridership and performance improvements and streamlined and seamless connection gets people where they are to where they want to go. And that is an opportunity to think about that entire system as one interconnected system from beginning to end, as a way to think about how to share development revenue and operations revenue. Get you your seamless connection and enhance your equity and social justice component by doing that. I think the example that we used in the past and other members will know is we talked about, for example, it's not always just about going to the grocery store, to the medical appointments. People want to recreate, including people with limited means, and there should be a way to get to Cache Creek and back. Whether that's starting out walking to the station or riding your scooter, hopping on the bus and getting to Cache Creek and taking your hike and then getting back on the bus and sort of coming back, and you should be able to use 2 or 3 modes to be able to accomplish that. Is there anybody wants to add anything?
Question on the equity study.
Yes.
So this is something that Yolo, that we did? Okay, because I know Carter had put out a bid for an equity client, and they hired AECom, right?
I hadn't heard who they hired yet, but that just happened, but yes.
Yeah, it just happened, yeah.
Yeah, so when we originally, we had a SACOG grant from before there was a CARTA, to do all of our kind of tolling advanced planning. That really led to the creation of CARTA and all of this stuff. Part of that is we built in an equity study component to that. So this is an equity study that is like, what do Yolo County communities, particularly communities on the I-80 corridor, need? And what are some opportunities for this project? You know, what are some what I think we're calling them early equity actions that could be done. And it is all advisory to CARTA at this point, but because CARTA is going to be looking at a regional tolling equity program. And so the way we pivoted is we said, well, okay, CARTA is the one in charge now, but we want to make sure that whatever they do is very focused on what our Yolo County communities did. So we did a deep dive on Yolo County communities, particularly those in Davis and West Sacramento, right, that are adjacent. And so we'll be presenting that to CARTA, and then kind of using that to kind of advocate, if you will, on behalf of the needs and priorities for Yolo County communities as CARTA puts together their kind of region-wide equity program.
Any others? Anybody online who wants to speak on this topic?
No public comments on
And I am assuming that you do not need any motion, that you've gotten the feedback that you need.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you everyone for your feedback and your attention tonight. This is a lot, but it's really important. So we are grateful to you.
I really want to thank you and the staff for the hard work. Okay, well, that takes us on to CAC member reports. We just started to my left, so we'll start to the right. Anyone have reports for of general interest?
Not this time, not this time.
I just recently got some feedback on our Beeline, and I saw that there's some, increase in fares coming up, and it was that, having to take it early in the morning, and I guess the vehicle that came for the individual that was sharing with me was like a more of a personal looking vehicle. It didn't look like a Beeline vehicle. License plate did not match what was given. It was a single woman traveling, and they stopped to pick up some people with bikes, and there were just some like not great odors in the vehicle, and so they were like, given the fact that rideshare is so expensive in Woodland and we're so close to the airport.
Did they take a picture?
They did it, but they have their receipt. They said they're willing to share, but, they were like, if there were an option, like a premium upgrade option to where they wouldn't necessarily have to experience that, they would be more than happy to pay for that option. But again, Uber and Lyft is like, no, it's wildly expensive. I don't know if you guys have looked, and like, they're always parked out at the thing. So they were like, I want to support local transit, but if this is gonna be the experience that I get, I don't know, I might just go ahead and spend the extra money on the Uber or the Lyft. So I just wanted to share that. Wow.
Enough people that weren't on the app.
No,
It didn't look like a public vehicle.
it didn't look like a Beeline vehicle. It looked like a private vehicle. And then the license plate number that they were provided for the vehicle that was coming to pick them up did not match the vehicle that came to pick them up.
We'll have to look into it. I'm guessing it may have been one of Transdev's service vehicles. Perhaps there was like, one of our Beeline vehicles was in the shop, and so they used one of their service vehicles or something, but that's,
And to
Really
be fair, it was a pretty early pickup too. So it wasn't like like a regular like 8 to 7 kind of pickup. It was, I know it was before 8 AM. So.
that's no reason. But thank you for the heads up
Yeah.
about that.
Because I mean, that person might not want to have gotten in that car. I mean, how they trust that person.
That's right.
Yeah.
For the city.
Especially since that probably didn't have a public plate.
Yeah, like, I mean,
Thank you for telling me.
Or?
I don't have any comments. I will have a couple of questions for the executive director when she gets her report.
Okay.
I wondered, like, if there are any, like, I have a question, I guess. It's not really like a sharing out thing, but more like a question. Maybe we should say that for the,
Only for the director's report.
yeah, I'll do that.
Okay.
Oh, I don't have any report.
Thank you. Me either. Okay. We'll go on into the executive director's report. Everybody who has those comments, put a pin in it, and we'll come back.
Okay, great. The first thing I want to let you know is the board approved new Brown Act guidance last month, consistent with state law changes to the Brown Act, which allows our committees to now either meet in hybrid in person, like we're doing, where we allow people to participate remotely if they have particular needs, and we allow public comment, but primarily the meetings in person. Or we can go back to fully remote meetings as we did during COVID, if that is the committee's preference. The board is going to continue to meet in person. This is only for advisory committees. Our technical advisory committee met last week and they decided they prefer to meet on Zoom for most meetings, but try to do like one meeting a year in person. So that's something we're interested in your feedback on. You know, it's not on the agenda tonight, so we're not asking you to make a decision on tonight, but we'll send out a poll with some options, and then make a determination about whether or not we want to continue to meet like this or, alternate in person and Zoom or something along those lines. So, again, look for an email, on that so that we can kind of go do whatever makes the most sense going forward.
That's exciting.
Now, so I wanted to share a few other things. It was actually brought up, our Beeline ridership increased by 20% in March over February. That's the most recent month we have reporting data for just the beginning of May. So served just over almost 4,700 rides in March. That's the highest ridership month for Beeline and Woodlands that launched. So we had seen a dip in Woodland ridership because we had some real serious on-time performance challenges last year. We've kind of, I think, fixed a lot of that, and now we're seeing the ridership coming back. And in winters, this March, we served 634 rides, which is an increase of 120% year over year compared to March of last year. So this is really reflecting that we added a second vehicle to really meet the demand, and that there was a latent demand. People who literally could not get rides. And so what we're seeing is, now that we've added the second vehicle, we're serving a lot more folks. So I wanted to highlight those. Fixed route ridership, flat, not changing dramatically. The changes we're really seeing are on Beeline. I had the opportunity to give a keynote at the UC Davis Transit Research Symposium last month. Thank you, Molly and her colleagues who let me get up there and rant about the fiscal cliff and some of these other things. It was a great opportunity. Also, this past month, we were all over the place. We were at Touch a Truck in Davis, where we had one of our vehicles honked and let the kids press the buttons and honk the horns. We've been very active with Maya's Bike Month, including at Loopalooza and the Breathe Bike Festival, that happened last weekend. And then you can find us this weekend. We'll have a Beeline vehicle at the Woodland Honey Festival, coming up here in Woodland this weekend. So this is the time of year when we're out and about at a lot of community events, and it's a fun time of year to get out and engage with the community. And that concludes my report. Happy to answer questions on anything there or anything I wouldn't touch on.
Okay, great. Well, I got to see you guys at Touch a Truck, so there you go. I was doing something else, but you were out there representing. I think you're overshadowed a bit by the fancy crane fire truck, but you were holding your own. Let me see, I think, Roland, you were first to say that you had a question, and then I think Molly, you were second.
I've got a few, but I'll just ask one at a time, and maybe somebody else has got the same question, but what's the latest on the state employee? I know it's uncertain, and how are you dealing with that?
So
Your
you must be
return
referring
to 4 days of work.
to the return to office. Yeah, right now we don't have any plans, obviously, to expand service. In fact, if we end up having to do one of our service reduction scenarios, it's likely that we're going to be cutting some of the express routes that are largely state workers use to get from Davis and Woodland to Sacramento. So I'd like to say we're expanding service in response to that, but I think given where we are, we're just holding steady for now and potentially looking at reducing that service. But Route 42 will always be there to get people between Woodland and Davis and downtown Sacramento. So not a lot I can say as far as service changes there.
Okay. I've got more, but I can wait.
I guess I thought maybe we'd gotten some kind of like legislative update in the past. It's like the time of year for that.
We don't have legislative staff, so we don't do much on legislation.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're members of the California Transit Association, and I'd be happy if it was something you're interested in to bring something back as a, receive and file or informational item on legislative updates in CTA.
Yeah, that would be
Interested in.
Yeah, that would be useful.
Yeah.
I don't have a question.
You have a question?
No, oh, I said I don't have a question.
Okay. Other question? All right, on the other one.
Okay, sure. I-80 managed lane project, could you give us a status?
Yeah, this will be on the agenda for the July meeting. You'll be getting an update. Currently, but I'll just say briefly, the construction of the roadway is going to be complete this November. That is still on track. So the civil construction will be complete. That's for the roadway itself. For the tolling system, that is lagging behind somewhat. So you may have seen the gantries are going in, the big kind of poles that are going to hold the signs, and the signs will be going up, but they won't be operational for some time. So when the civil work is done, you'll see what looks like an empty lane out there for a while. And the Carter Board has not yet decided if that lane is going to kind of be open and free as it was in Solano County before the tolling started, or if it's just going to stay closed until tolling gets underway. The tolling is going to lag by about 18 months after the roadway construction is complete. So we're looking at beginning service in 2029, 2030. Carter's just busy working on a lot of different pieces. Again, you'll get an update on it next month. But I would say that's the major one in terms of what's impacting people's lives is the construction. Yeah, happy to answer any other specific questions.
So there's been a settlement then, or they go to court and?
There has not been a settlement. There was litigation. That litigation found in favor of Caltrans. There was an appeal that was filed. So it's gone up to the appellate court, but I have not heard. In fact, I was just on a call with Caltrans today and there was no update on that.
Okay.
But there's not been an injunction to halt the construction. And obviously the construction is nearly complete at this point. So,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Sure.
And then the last question I've got is, you made your comments about this already, and there's been a few things you said that, make me understand that you're happy with the new operator. And I'm just curious about how the selection process went generally and how you came about, selecting this operator.
Sure, happy to provide an update on that. So it's been almost a year-long process. We issued an RFP, a request for proposals back in the fall in November. And proposals were due in February. We had a pre-proposal conference which had 6 firms came to the pre-proposal conference, which is a great number. I think they looked around the room and saw that there was too many, so only 4 of them ended up bidding. But 4 is still a very good number. We were happy. I think the last time we did this, we actually received 2. Or possibly 3. So we were glad to have that we had so many bids. We interviewed all 4. We had an evaluation panel that included your chair. Chair Baker served on that evaluation panel and was part of all the interviews. And
Non-voting.
she was a non-voting member, that's true. So we scored all 4 proposals. We interviewed all 4 proposers. We rescored the proposals, and throughout that process, the one who ultimately won the award, MV Transportation, was the highest ranked at every stage in the process. And so the panel,
by everybody.
yeah, and so the panel's decision was actually unanimous, to support them. We did do also a round of best and final offers where we asked them to go out and sharpen their pencils on their price proposals. In the end, MV's proposal was very, very close in price, almost identical to one of the other bidders, which gave us comfort that we were where we needed to be. Interestingly, Transdev's was the highest. Theirs was the highest cost proposal, our incumbent, which was interesting. So we ended up. There was 2 in the middle. There was one that was really, really inexpensive, but we had concerns about their qualifications to do the work. And then Transdev was the higher end. So we ended up going with one of the 2 that was in the middle. So I think we feel pretty good about the process. And Madam Chair, I don't know if there's anything you would want to add.
Well, first of all, really great selection panel. All of the folks on there were really adept at in their job. And they treated us as actually an important part of the process and did not feel like we were less than. So that was pretty cool. And I think, of course, it's not. We got a really good opportunity to see what kinds of software solutions are out there that different people are using, which ones are using in common, which ones are sort of more have stronger platforms than others, which are sort of still kind of like have some problems. And so we were really comfortable in kind of knowing that we were picking a good road with the software that was used by others, but was a lot more innovative than what we have right now.
Can you say who was on the panel?
Yeah, that's public information. Let's see if I can remember. You can help at least if I forget anyone. We had Jeff Flynn from Unitrans, Matt Mock from Yuba Sutter Transit, so 2 transit operators. We had Ryan Chapman, who's Public Works for City of Davis, Jason McCoy, who's Transportation for City of West Sacramento. We had Christina Svensk, a Transportation Manager for SACOG, Transportation Director for SACOG, although she was not at the interviews. And then myself and Daisy Romero, bless you, and Courtney Williams from our transit operations team. I think that might be it.
And me.
And Chair Baker.
And none of the board members.
No board members. That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
But it went to the board and they accepted the recommendation.
They did.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, not the cost increase that we wanted, but we were, because of the process and how robust it was and how many bids we got, I think the board felt comfortable that this was the price and that we were just, there wasn't a better deal working out there somewhere.
So you didn't have to go back.
Yeah, it was a really robust process.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone?
Oh, I have a question. So has it been decided when our next meeting will be?
Yes, maybe we could pull up the long range calendar, Janine.
Good segue.
Yeah. So the next meeting, to answer your question, it's also the last page of your packet. The next meeting is July 27th, 2026. And then the following meeting is September 28th, 2026. And so the three items that we have, the first is about YOLO commute, or the expansion of our YOLO commute program, an update on our fare payment methods transition, and then a YOLO 80 managed lane update. And that says equity study and outreach, but I know that BMT mitigation is also going to be a part of that. And then in September is when we believe we'll be coming back to you to talk about our short range transit plan and our service changes. In other words, kind of what is the final plan that we're adopting and whether or not it represents a service cut over our current service levels. So that's our calendar.
I think you're wanting to add, for the future meeting format after you do the poll.
Yes, and I don't know that you need to actually take a formal action to do that. I think we could do a poll and we could make a decision about whether or not you want to meet remotely or in person for those meetings. But I'm happy to bring it back to you, Madam Chair, bring it back to the group.
I think if there's not unanimity, we should bring it back.
Okay, how about that? How about if there's not unanimity, then we'll bring it back. That's a good idea.
So our options are,
We don't know yet.
oh, okay, our options are hybrid or in
Yeah,
person.
options are to keep meeting like this, or to meet on Zoom, or we could do some mix of some, like two meetings a year in person and 4 meetings a year remote or something along those lines.
And some people only do it if someone can't attend in person. I don't know if we want to consider that option, but that's the only one that's out there too.
Yeah, that's right. So hybrid meetings are an option where some people could attend in person and some people could attend online. Yeah,
Yeah, I can't attend in person on July 27th.
okay. Well, there you go. There's your vote for that one.
I will be in San Diego at a conference, so
She might not want to vote at all.
I'm not sure if I can participate remotely because I'm not sure that's when the conference goes until like on the 6th, so I might be able to do it remotely, but that shouldn't dictate our decision.
I think, yeah, if there's not unanimity, just bring it back and discuss it. If there is, we can move forward. And with that, 7:47, and we're good.